They say university makes students. Here, students make university. So with the slogan of Think Big, I, Himanshi Kaushik, your host of the day, would want to welcome you all in today's masterclass. So first thing first is I hope you're happy, safe, and sound at wherever you're taking this masterclass from. And so today's masterclass is on cloud computing and cloud hosting. So before we dive deep into today's session and the knowledge we're going to get today from the session, let me introduce you to our today's expert, Mr. Sami sir. Sami Anand, Associate Dean and Assistant Professor, Head of Department Training Placement LPU. A person with a demonstrated history of working in education management industry for more than 10 years. His expertise is in cloud computing, process automation, mobile application development, student skill development, programming, lecture, and last but not the least, curriculum development as well. He is a strong human resource professional with a master's degree focused in computer science. So, sir, I wholeheartedly welcome you in today's session and looking forward for an amazing and insightful session, sir. And sir, with this, I request you to take over the mic and over to you, sir.
Thank you, Himanshi, for the warm welcome. So, good afternoon, everyone. I'll keep this session a lot hands-on and interactive in a manner. I'll be happy if you post your questions throughout the sessions, and then at the end, we'll be able to take the questions. Now, I'll share my screen and we'll start with the idea of cloud. But what you will see right now is what we are going to do as in hands-on, the AWS console, which is the AWS Amazon Web Services console. And out here, we'll try to create an instance, which would be a computing instance through which we can do multiple things. Now, let's understand the word cloud computing and how it has transformed the IT industry and how it has become the lifeline, or you could say the oxygen of all the IT services that you use today. So all of you mostly have phones, you have a lot of applications, you binge watch a lot of shows, maybe on Netflix, maybe on Amazon Prime, and many other such, I would say, platforms. And you use ChatGPT nowadays, obviously, and Google search, and you visit a number of different websites. So how these websites are able to, accommodate such high traffic and how they're able to execute it. One thing is very clear, that they have big data centers, which we call, server rooms in one or the other manner. What is there in these server rooms, or what is a server, to be honest and straightforward? Server is basically nothing. It's a simple computer, but it has humongous capacity in terms of hardware. So you on your laptop or a system right now would have what, 8 GB, 16 GB of RAMs. You would have 1 terabyte storage at max, few MBs cache, RAM would be what, 16 GB. But a server can have hundreds of GBs of RAM. The storage could be in multiple hundreds of terabytes. The caches, the CPUs could be multiple, and that too, again, they would be multi-core processors with very high executing capacity. It will not have an operating system, obviously, like Windows, which we'll just see how it works, but it would have humongous capacity to manage those hardware, and anyone can use that hardware. Now, let's take an example. Any new movie that comes out on Netflix, thousands of users, lakhs of users ponder on Netflix, open in their phone, TV, maybe laptop, and start playing that movie. How Netflix caters to such huge traffic at the same point of time. IPL is going on. You look at, Jio Cinemas, you see a counter on the top right corner. It says 1.x crore people, 2.2 crore people watching live all together. Now, how those 2.2 crore people are able to watch through internet all together? Earlier, it used to be cable operators. There should be a satellite at your home. The web, everyone is getting those signals. Everyone is doing it. But through internet, you're accessing a website, and those 2 crore people are accessing that application. And why is that application not crashing if such a huge traffic is coming? Now, relate the same idea with your internet booking. If you would have ever tried a Tatkal ticket booking, it's so difficult because at that point of time, it's very slow. Multiple times it logs out, your user session goes out. So many things happen. Now, cloud is just a terminology because it was a representational diagram in networks as cloud. So cloud computing means computing which is done remotely. Now, when I say remotely, there's a data center which you connect to, and almost everything is being executed at data center. And the to and fro reply is coming from your system to the data center, and whatever commands you are pushing in goes to the cloud, executes on the application. Again, reply comes back to you. So let's not do anything. Let's understand cloud computing by execution, and I'll then take your example, any queries that are there at the end. Now let's understand. So this is a console. If you log into AWS, you create your account, a free tier account, which you can do it anytime. We'll do everything free tier. So if you want to replicate the same at home, work with it, you can do. Now, if you go to the AWS console, this is how it looks like on basic that, okay, how many issues are there? It is a dashboard. Now, the basic computing service, the name of that service is EC2. There are a lot of hell of services. I'll just click on view all services to just give you a glance. So see, these many services are there in cloud computing, which are available for any cloud developer or any application developer to use. Multiple, they are used for different particular logic at different points with services, media services, front end, migration, database, storage, all lot of services are there. We'll try to understand the very basic service, which is a computing service, that how you can access a computing service, and with the help of that computing service, how you can host application. And then there are different services which you can use based on those applications. Now, this is the dashboard which tell me how many instances, how many IPs, whatever things are running. So it says volumes, I'm using 1, instances is currently 1, key pairs that I'm using 1. What are all of these? We'll just understand. What we'll do is we'll go step by step. Let's launch a fresh new instance. Now, this is something which you would be doing when you are a cloud developer. You would be creating instances, you would be launching those instances, installing applications, managing them at runtime, and then deciding that what is going wrong if the server is not working, someone is not able to reply. So you'll understand when a website is not working. So let's give it a name, test server. And because I have multiple test servers, so just randomly, let's give it a name. So today's 28, let's test server 20. This is the name through which I'll be able to recognize which server to use. Now, in this server, you can have n number of operating systems which are there. Which operating system you use, you have to decide. So we'll go by the basic free one, which is the Amazon Linux one, which is the latest one, 2023, and it's eligible for free tier. System, it could be 64-bit or it could be ARM. So let's keep the Intel one. So I can also decide whether my processor needs to be ARM or whether my processor needs to be Intel. Then instance type. This tells you how much CPU power you have, how much memory you have, how it's going to work. So it has one CPU, 1 GB of memory, and it's on demand. This is the costing per hour, which is there, which goes, and there are multiple such tiers based on my requirement, how many people I know would come to my service. I can decide which one to go for. Right now, we'll go for the free tier, which is again T2.micro. Now this key pair, as it was showing key pair 1, so we'll create a new key pair. What is this key pair? It's like a password. Now, normally you type in a password, which is to be authenticated, but this key pair is a hash file, which decides and authenticates whether you are the actual user for this server, which we created as test server 20 or not. Now, there are multiple, I would say, ways in which I can have it, RSA or ED255. So these are authentication or encryption mechanisms which are there. The file type, it could be .pem, which is open, and .ppk, which is putty, which is again, you would have to use a special software to access. So we'll keep it open. We'll create the name test key 20. We'll give it the name test key 20. It will create this key. Now it will ask me to save this key on my system. So I'll just save this key at a particular location in my system, and it is saved. Now this is the key file. Anyone having this key file can access this server which I'm creating. So you're creating this file, it is there. Now the SSH traffic, you use websites, HTTPS, HTTP. So we'll just allow it that it can access through HTTP, HTTPS as well as SSH. Now SSH is secure, and how it is done, we'll just have a look at it. when we execute it through a remote access, we'll just see how that works. Now, this is to make it accessible through the web browser. Now, storage, again, you want to have storage in your system. Right now, it says 18. So let's just increase it to maybe a 10 GB and we'll just have a 10 GB storage. So now think of it. Your phone has more power than this. It has one CPU with 1 GB power and 10 GB of storage. Phones are coming with 8 GB, 12 GB, 16 GB of RAM and 512, 128, 64 GB as storages. But this server, we are creating a very small server to host a website so that when we run, it can access the website. And how this things works, we'll talk about it. Now, we can review the summary from here that the image which we have used is Amazon Linux. The server is T2 Micro. There's a new security group which we have launched. The storage is this one, and we are okay with it. Let's launch the instance. Now it will take a few seconds. Yeah, so it's there. So the instance is now started. It's launched. Now, what I can click on is at the bottom of the page, view all instances. So you will see multiple instances which are there. So one is pending, which is yet to start, which is the one we worked with. And the other one, which was my previous one, it is at stop. Now it's in running stage. As soon as I click, I check it is in a running stage. Now the private IP is this one, and there would be a public IP for every, what I would say, instance that you create. So this is the public IP which is there. Now, when we configure it, when we run it with Apache server and everything, it will be able to run through this particular web address. Now let's do that. Let's connect to this particular instance. As soon as I click on connect, it comes up in a manner that this is the public IP. I want to connect. Yes, I want to connect to it. It takes me to a new interface. Now let's understand this interface. See, now this interface is that new system which I have created. It's equivalent to a laptop. It's equivalent to a laptop which is there with 1 GB of storage, 10 GB, 1 GB of RAM, 10 GB of storage, which we just created with all those functionalities. Now it's Linux. So it has to be command prompt. It will run through command prompt and we'll run it through command. But later on, when you study cloud, there would be a lot of GUI as well available. But why we need to understand commands at basic nascent level, you need to understand commands, because that's how you will create shell files, which will automatically script, run, and configure your server around it. Now let's do. So the very first thing that we are doing is we are accessing the super user. We have just entered as a super user. So it was earlier, if you look at EC2 user, which was there through this local IP, but we entered through a root, which is the super user. So now I have all the admin privileges. So whenever a simple example of this, you can look at your command prompt or any application. So in new Windows 11, you can see it has an option as run as administrator and normal open. When you open it normally, a lot of administration privileges are blocked. So you cannot run certain commands, you cannot change certain system. But when you run as administrator, it will ask you access. Do you really want to run as administrator? But you will be given access to edit a lot of files which are there, which are system files, and that might corrupt your system as well. So it gives you an option to open normally and run as an administrator. So what we did, we entered as a normal user. Then we moved into as a root user, which is a super admin or admin access, you can say. Now, we need to check whether the Linux which is there is updated or not. We'll just update it. This is the command for update. Yum has a very funny history why Yum came into Linux. You can go out and check it. It's a very old one, yellow updater, which is there, and it was started with Linux. Someone gave that syntax as Yum, so Yum got stuck with it. So when I do, it says everything is fine, updated, resolved. All the updates which are there is okay. So I don't need to go for anything else. Now, I'll just still see if I have to, go for executing a website. There is something known as Docker. So when I talk about Docker, let's switch to an image first and understand that image. That would give you a clarity about Docker, and we'll start from there. Now, look at this image. There's a virtual machine, and then there's a container structure which is there. Now, let's understand this virtual machine and this containers and how, these are different and how the execution works differently. Now, you look at this virtual machine, which is the infrastructure, which is your server. You install a hypervisor software over it. This hypervisor allows you to have multiple guest OS on which each of this multiple guest OS, you can have their own libraries and running each of the applications. So if you look at out here, this is application 1, application 2, application 3 running, and it is running on its own based on using the infrastructure through this hypervisor. Now, this structure, we are dependent on hypervisor, and we have to install a guest OS if needed separately every time for every application. Now, this does what? This uses a lot of space because a guest OS would be of size. It could be in GBs, it could be in few MBs, but every time that few MBs or few GBs needs to be installed again and again, separate Brin libraries, and again, this app is dependent on its own. So it's a repetition, a lot of repetition that happens. But whereas in case of a container, over the operating system, you install a container engine, you do not need to install separate guest OS every time. You will straight away have those libraries separated for each of these applications, and you can run all of these applications easily. So you get away from the hassle of installing the OS again and again. Who takes care of that management? It's the container engine which takes care of that management. Now, so container has some advantages over the virtual machine, which was the initial concept of virtualization over which cloud came into place. One of the ways in which we create these containers is known as Docker. So Docker is a tool, which is a containerization tool, which help us create containers, host containers, launch containers. Okay. Just let me remove these. Sorry. Yeah. I hope my screen is visible now. Can someone put it into the chat so that I can know?
Yes, it is visible, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Manju. Now, let's execute this Docker now. So we'll just type yum Docker, which is the name of the tool. And again, simple to install it. Again, so the Docker command, which was there, it says that it's not there. Sorry, I missed something. I had to install Docker, so I need to write install. Now it is doing what? It is installing this Docker. So see this 52 MBs, which is there, sorry, 74, 89, all of this is being getting downloaded, and it's not getting downloaded on my system. Neither my internet is being used. It's this internet in Amazon data center that is getting used. It is getting installed there. It is getting run there. So there is no cost that is coming at my end except executing this command, which is going there. Rest, all the execution, the internet downloading, everything is getting downloaded into that Amazon web server somewhere, maybe in Singapore, might be in US. No one knows exactly where it is there. But obviously it's a regional base. So this one most probably would be somewhere in Singapore where it is getting downloaded and executed. Now, once I have installed, let's check our Docker version, that what version we have of Docker. So it says this is the build 20, which is there, which is the latest Docker version available, and it is there and it is running there. Now, let's start this service of Docker. Sorry. Now, as soon as I run the command service Docker start, it gives the idea that I need to start this Docker service. So if you look out here with this command, it gives me a simple idea redirecting to bin system1 start docker.service. So docker.service, that means the Docker service which I wanted to run is started now. Now I'll check the service status, whether it actually started or there was a problem, whether it is activated or not. So if you look at the status, it will give you a long list of things. So from the command where we executed that this Docker status, if you look at out here, this is where we gave the status. So now in this status Docker service, application container engine is loaded, it's active, it's running, docker.socket, it's checked everything, and everything is fine and it's running. So it has given us this particular simple execution. Now I'll simple escape from here and I'll come out of the Docker service, check that yes, the container engines and everything are running. So now I want to connect this Docker to the Amazon Linux, which is there, which is my Amazon Linux 5 operating system. And then I want to host an application which says it works or something like that at the end, that my application and cloud is running absolutely fine. So first I'll check whether that server is available or not. Now, because we are doing it on what we would say is command line, so spaces, everything, it's case sensitive. So if I give a space out here in, let's say, Linux and search, it will say nothing is found and there's some problem. There's no such image available. As soon as I remove the space, which is Amazon's Linux altogether, see, it has found that Amazon Linux is there. It has given me all the idea that yes, it is available and what it is. Now I want to say that, okay, this is there. Now I want to load this image of Amazon Linux on my Docker and run it. So I'm writing Docker images and it will say repository image tag, which is there, ID created. Now with this, what I want to do is I want to start the service now. So what I'll run is a Docker command, which will run my server and add to it value. Now, this run name, which is it is expecting, is the name of the server which we started. So let's give it the name, which was test server 20, which was my server name. And I need to connect it to the port which is used for HTTP. So the port that is used for HTTP is generally 80. So I'm connecting it to that and the Amazon Linux operating system. Now, because see, the first thing was it was not able to find the Amazon Linux locally. So it started executing and it started running. Now, with this Amazon Linux latest is involved and installed in it, now I can run the server. So let's first test it because we need to check whether the port is working or not. And that is what we will check. So if I check this Docker port, yes, it says that the Docker port is running absolutely fine and 8080 is connected. The TCP is working properly. So now we can go ahead and execute. Now this bin bash, which is there, is where I'm entering into the root of execution, where we'll install the Apache server, and then we'll go to that public IT and check whether my services are running or not, whether I'm able to access the website which I want to create or not. Again, we'll update it first. We'll check whether the update is there or not. So some updates are needed. It is updating those repositories. It will take a few seconds. It's complete. All the update is there. Just a second. It is still configuring. Just a second, let me check. So some of the progress which was there was lost because of that refresh. Yeah, now we are back. So we just check the Docker status. And if it is running, we'll be able to see the website saying it works. Sorry. Yeah, it's active, it's loaded. Now, when you access a website, how do you access it? Let's understand that. And from there, you will be able to understand this example properly. Let me minimize it a bit so that you can look at the browser top. Yes. Now, let's suppose I want to go to google.com. Obviously, it will route me back to google.co.in. Now, this google.com, let's check what is google.com's IP. If you just type this, it says the IP address for google.com is 142.250.720.206, which is the IP. Now what I'll do is I'll copy this IP. In the next window, I'll type this IP. This IP will also lead me back to google.com. Similarly, for any website, you can check. Let's check with Netflix IP address. So the Netflix IP address, it has a different port ranges, but it says that this is one of those IP addresses which is there, which you can use for Netflix. Let's see. Where does it redirect it into? So it's an unsecured one. So it says it is there, but it is unsecured. Let's try the other IP address, which is there, which might be secured one should be. No. So all of these addresses are not secured IP, might be wrong. So we should not come up directly with that. So some of them can fool in this manner. For every website, basically the name is given to you to tell you and make it easy for you to remember. But actually at the end, they are served IP addresses are numbers, digits in this format. Now, let's look at the IP address, which I told you in the very start for us, which was the service which we started. So you can look at the public IP address for this service of EC Instance 2 was 43.205.208.20. Now let's check whether this gives me some output when I reach to this website or not. Okay, the site is not working. I think so. The last step execution was not there. So we'll have to repeat a few steps on our system. Now, so because it says that the server is not getting executed, let's check again. So the container service is down. We'll have to go again. Okay, the container is there now. Okay, small mistake, as I said, 20, I missed out. So as soon as I said 20, it's there now. So this is what I have done is I've installed HTTP server. So which is the directory server, which will able to redirect the command for the IP address that we give. And then it will be able to execute our website easily. So let's just let it install the HTTP server. So this is the number of packages which are going. So 42 packages needs to be installed. So the bash is complete, and let's check now. Let me just copy that IP address again, and that's should not come this way. Okay, let me go back and check the bash. Okay, let's check now. There it is. So now what we have done is we have just created a simple website. This website was hosted on the Docker container. With the Docker container, when we hosted this website through this IP address, we are able to just launch it. We have just given a simple HTML prompt, which is it works. You can design the website. So when you go to buy a domain name, so you would have heard about domain names getting bought and getting sold at higher cost. So domain name, like for every company, it is there. So for certain companies, if the domain name is not there, that is because someone else owns that domain name and they would have some different kind of domain name for that. So similarly, for this, we have this IP address. Now, if I buy a domain name from any of the websites, from any domain websites, I will attach this IP address with that domain name. So whenever you type that domain name at the end .com, .org, something.in, and you press it enter, it will redirect to this IP address. This IP address is nothing but the address of this machine where I have my hosted website, and it will load whatever I want the website as first to be loaded. So if it is a web page, it's a simple web page, it's a home page, it will open up the home page. And then when you click on home, what functionality to execute, everything is on that Docker server. And if multiple users come to my page right now, any one of you can try this. I'll put it into the chat box and you can check that this website will open at your particular system as well. Right now, it will just say it works. Any one of you can try it at your particular location. It will give out the same prompt. I've put it into the chat box. Okay, I think so. It only is going to host and panelist. Manchi, can we send out this message to anyone?
Yes, sir. Just a moment. Just a moment.
So they can try it out their home and see with the same prompt which is there on their screen right now as on my screen is visible to them at their particular laptops, which or phones, whichever they are. So you can use it on phone. Just type in this same HTTP 43.205.208.20, and you can send back the reply, whether you are able to saying it works on your system or not. Yeah, the link is there with everyone. I think Himanshi has shared it. And you can then respond whether you're able to see this or not. And then we'll shift to the query handling session. When you get a prompt, Himanshi, from any of the students, do let me know.
So basically, students are raising their hands. Just a moment. So there are only questions in here. The queries, they're not basically responding to the link. So
Okay. So let's move on then. Now, this is the way in which we accessed it through the portal of AWS, where it is there. Now, what if I want to access the same file which is remotely? So this was, I'll just log out from here, exit from super user, and exit from my EC2.
excuse me,
Logout
sir.
is there. Now, because I have exit, no one will be able to access that link because I've closed the server down.
Sir, there's one prompt that has come from Atyaksh Kumar, and he says that it works. I just saw.
Yeah. So now it wouldn't work because I've just exited that system. So this was a website which I just hosted from my system, and anyone can access it. Had a very small capacity server from AWS. Now, coming back to the same service, let's see how we can connect to it remotely, anywhere, anyone, how they are able to access it. And if I want to access this same website to edit, but not from this system because it was online through a web console, but I want to do it from offline from my system, how can I do that? Again, we'll go back to the instances which are there because I'll need the IP address again. So the instance which is running is the server 20. Now it's still in the running state. Now I want to connect to this, but not through a web browser, through the security key which was there. And let's understand that importance of that security key. So there is a service which is known as PowerShell, which you will study in CS, obviously, when you come in. So this is PowerShell. Again, open or run as administrator. I'll run as administrator because I need some special access to it. Now, when I run it as administrator, I need to access it. I need to access it in a manner so that I'm accessing that system. Now, what I'll be doing is I'll be writing a command, which is again SSH key, which it asks for me, -I. Now I need to give the location where that key is kept. So I'll just skip back to the location of the key, which was in this folder. So this was the key which was there, test key 20.pem. I'll copy it as a path. I'll come back to my shell. I'll paste it out here. Now, this is the path where my key is. So this key is going to authenticate that I am the actual user for this test server. And because I need to access which server, I need to tell it's an EC2 server. I am the user for that server. Now, @ the name, which is there, I need to tell it. Press enter, and you'll see the same prompt which was there on the website, the same thing. Sorry, I need to give the IP address. My mistake. It will not recognize test server 20. Totally my mistake. I'll just copy the IP address. I'll come back, paste. Now see, what I've done is I've connected. If you see, this was the same prompt which was there when I accessed it through AWS web browser, and the same I can execute my commands out here. I can install, I can update. You can see the same. If I want to execute everything the same, but this is on a system. It's on your Windows system. It is happening. Nothing is happening. Yeah, these commands are getting executed there, but the access is through this PowerShell of your Windows, not through a web browser. So it could be used anyway. That's your choice how you want to use it. Either you want to use it through the web interface, you want to use the PowerShell, both the ways. Now, as soon as I see exit, see the connection to this particular is exited, and the Windows system, I'm back to my PC Windows. Earlier, I was running root system, all those direct server access. But now I'm back. Whatever command I execute will now get executed on this system. All these commands earlier were getting executed at a remote server, which was the server which I connected to. So the PowerShell is a very important tool when it comes to computers. And this is something which you will be starting. If you take a course which is related to cloud computing, which we have a specialization available in DevOps as well as in cloud computing, both of this is something very important, and this is something which you will be studying in those courses. Now, we can open up for any kind of queries with related to programs, with related to cloud computing, and Himanshi, you can help me with that.
Yes. Okay, sir. Thank you so much for your immense valuable knowledge, and we are grateful the time that you've credited for us, and your explanation way is really appreciated. And thank you again, sir, for the presentation. And yes, sir, we do have certain queries. The first query is, sir, from Tanish Dogra, and he says, sir, can we use AWS for free?
Yes, Tanish, we can use AWS for free, though at the time of registration, you need to enter your credit card or debit card details there. But the idea is when you start a service, as I was using everything in free tier. So when you start a service, there are certain services available for free tier mentioned to their name, certain services which are paid and the cost is mentioned. So never use those cost services, use it in free tier. And a word of advice, I'll share my screen again, because you have asked a good question out there. So what you need to do if you're using free tier and there is a chance that you might be charged for it. So whenever you have done with the service, what you need to do is you need to stop that service. So look at this dashboard. I have instances total 2 but running. So what I'll do is I'll go back to the instance, this instance which was running. I'll simply stop the instance and it will give me a prompt. I'll just go and stop it. So once it is stopped, you are not charged for it. And the problem is even after this, at times you might be charged because you still have certain services that you are using. These services, it's stopped. What I can look at in my EC2 dashboard, what I'm still using is the volumes which are there. So for key pairs, there is no charges, but whereas volumes is concerned, they are charged for the first few hours. They are free, 750 hours or something. And post that, even in the free tier, they charge you. So what you can simply do is these services which are there, you can delete them. And these services can be attached on the runtime when you are, going to use it. If you're not going to use it, you can simply remove these and delete it, and you don't need it. Right now, I'm not deleting because I have something which is already out there. So I would not delete, but you can simply delete these services and you will not be charged for it. So you can use it for free for learning and teaching purposes.
Sir, there's another question, and that's from Costa Mohanty. He wants to know, sir, can we do this on Windows?
I'm doing it on Windows, Costa, right now.
Okay, and sir, again, this Jamit Patel wants to know, sir, I am using AWS for over 3 months, and I have learned multiple services like EC2, EKS, ECS, Lambda, etc. But in few of them, I have some doubts which I can't get answer from internet. Does I need guidance from a teacher? Which teacher can I contact to?
Obviously, I can help you there, Jamit. So your email ID is recorded with us. I'll ask the admission team to share it with me, and then I'll get back to you. Whatever doubts you have, we can exchange over email and we can get those resolved.
Sir, there's another query from Vihan Gaur, and he wants to know what is the difference between doing BTech in cloud computing and getting a certification in clouding after graduation.
So the difference is not much. Anytime you do a certification, it's valid while you're doing through a degree or while you're doing after the degree. The only difference is you'll be late if you do it after the degree, because at the end of the day, the placements are going to be through campus. So while you are running and while you are, studying the program, if that particular program offers you this advantage of learning cloud computing while you are doing your BTech degree, why to wait for the degree to complete and then learn? So it's just adding to the time, whereas the companies would come in campus when you are just completed your 3rd year, and before the 4th year, you will get a placement. So if you delay till the degree end, you have lost the bus. You are out of it. So during the degree, we have embedded cloud computing courses within the degree in specialization. There are 2 specializations. One is DevOps and automation with cloud. and another is cloud computing with Google. So Google is obviously, then we'll be using the GCP, which is Google Cloud Computing Platform out there, teaching you that certifications are embedded in it, and you will be able to clear those certifications. And when the company comes to campus, you already are certified, ready to get placed.
Okay, and so there's another question from Atyaksh. What is the role of virtualization in cloud computing, and how does it help to optimize resources and reduce costs?
A very good question, Akshay, I would say, because a lot of people don't understand the importance of virtualization in cloud computing. So cloud computing is basically a concept where the computing services are loaned out. How they are loaned out is based on the virtualization process. So just let's take an example. You have one hard disk in your system, but what do? You split that hard disk into a C drive, a D drive, and an E drive, and you store data separately. So your Windows crashes, only C drive goes out. D, E, F, all those drive data is still safe. At local level, you are doing virtualization. At hardware level, you have one hard disk, but you have virtualized that hard disk in a manner that it is separated into multiple sectors. And if something happens, it only happens to the sector which has your system files and not your personal data. Now, the same way with cloud computing, what it happens is it uses virtualization to divide a big set of hardware for every user individually. So take an example of Google Drive, where you upload your Google photos. Is what? It's not on a separate server for you. It's not a 15 GB separate hard disk for you. It's on a very big, humongous server of multiple 100 terabytes. It might be possible my Google Photos, Himanshi Google Photos, and your are all on the same server sitting next to each other, but we'll never know it because it is virtualized in a manner that we see our 15 GB, we store it there, but it is stored on a very big server altogether.
Thank you so much, sir. I think all the queries have been resolved. I believe no student and attendees posting any queries. So I think all of the queries have been resolved. Okay, yeah, sir, they have been resolved. Sir, thank you so much again for the presentation and resolving the queries of the students. And so with this, I shall take the permission from all the attendees now, and of course you to end the session, sir. Can I?
Thank you, Himanshi.
Okay then, sir. Thank you so much for all the participants and attendees. I hope you have thoroughly enjoyed the session like I have, and it is obviously visible from among the questions that have been coming from you guys to us.
I think so. We have one another question, Himanshi.
Yes, sir.
Ganesh Arora is having that, will mowing gauge hire people who don't have certification? Ganesh, obviously certification is something which tells the company that you are certified there, and obviously carries a higher value into the interview. So when you move into an interview, a student carrying the certification and a student coming and saying, I know the knowledge, but don't have the certification, it would be a different aspect in which the interview will look at both of them. With one, he's sure because he's certified. With the other, he's still dicey how it goes out. So yes, certification do carry a value. And the name of the company you have asked, so it's going to come in campus very soon. We have already got the confirmation for the 2024 graduating batch and at a very, I would say, respectable package, which is 15 lakhs and above. So yes, mowing gauge do hire from us and at a very good package. And yes, it gives benefit to the students who are certified.
Okay, I hope Kanishka, your query has been resolved now. So with this, I shall end the session, sir. And to all the attendees and participants, thank you so much for joining in the session, and thank you for coming again. And with this, sir, I end the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Machi.